going on, guys? Dan with PC Tech Hustle coming at you with another video, and today I got for you guys a different video here. We're actually doing an unboxing video. Now I know I don't do a whole lot of unboxing videos, and mainly because my channel is mostly about builds, but when I encounter a product I am particularly interested about, I want to share it with you guys. So I was putting together a build for a Dell Optiplex Revisit, which will be out later this month. But what I was looking for is some power supplies, obviously, because power supplies are not in of great standings right now in the market. They're typically pretty expensive. So I was stumbling around on Amazon and I found this power supply on Amazon for $39. So it fit the bill as far as being within around the budget I wanted to spend, being $39, but I had never heard of this product before ever. So the brand, I'm gonna take a stab at it here. Aresgame. I'll let you guys decide, but I looked at it and the product itself on Amazon looked actually pretty nice. I mean, there didn't look to be like the usual cheap outs that you usually see with a cheap power supply with like ketchup and mustard cables, things like that. This actually has like all black cables from what I could see in the pictures, as well as it's an 80+ bronze rated power supply. And it also said it includes some kind of power supply tester that comes with it, which I thought was pretty awesome. So I don't know yet if this is really a trustworthy brand. Like I said, I haven't really heard of the company at all. So I want to make a good name for them if this is a good product. So they didn't sponsor this whatsoever. As I mentioned, I just found it on Amazon and I'm gonna just open this sucker up and see what it'll do. But so I guess really what much more can we say other than let's open this box up. This is a fresh raw unboxing that I'll have done for you guys here, and we're gonna test it. So obviously look at the power supply firsthand, and then I'm gonna put it on a test bench and let's hammer the heck out of it and see if we can get some kind of weirdness going on or if it's just gonna be a good power supply. So let's check it out. Alrighty guys, and before we get into the unboxing here, I just want to make a quick mention that if you guys are new here to the channel and you enjoy part unboxings like this, PC builds, or any other PC tech related content, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and don't forget to tick that bell notification icon. That way you're informed of whenever I drop my latest content. So let's pan the camera over here down a little bit closer and let's see what this power supply is all about. Alrighty guys, so we're in a little closer now, so let's take a look at what we got here. So first thing that kind of catches my eye here is this handle at the top, which I thought is kind of neat, you know, easy to carry around your power supply if you need to. So let's open it up here. As mentioned, this is a 80+ bronze 500 watt power supply from the name that we don't really even know yet. But just looking on the box outside, it looks like it shows that it supports basically all of your mainstream power connectors. Again, it looks like they're all black cabling, remains to be seen. I believe that is true though, because I did find a YouTube video online from this brand, but there really isn't much out there. So I think they only have like 2 videos. But anyway, so let's open her up. Just got a tab in the back here. Oop. And lay it open here. So this is what we got in the box. Just a quick little user manual. We got some things off to the side here. Here's that power supply tester. We'll get into that here in a moment. A free gift. Cool. What is this? We'll check that out later. Power cable, as you would normally expect with any power supply, and the power supply actually wrapped in a pretty good little plastic inflatable wrapping, so I kind of like that. So let's check it out here. Pull it out of the box. And oh, we got some zip ties and screws here as well. All right, let's get the box out of the way. All right, so here is the unit itself. Let's get this wrapping off of the box, the power supply. Simple, actually. Just a piece of tape that held on that, so that's nice. And here we go. Actually, yeah, it looks pretty nice. It's nice looking, anyway. Let's take a look at the 12-volt rails here. So what we got? So it says a combination on the 12-volt rail, it'll sustain 450 watts. So that's pretty good. Usually these are the things you want to look for when you know you got a cheap power supply, is what your combined 12-volt rail will give you. So it's saying it'll give us a sustained 450 watts up to up to that figure on the 12-volt rails. So we're not seeing a lot of times when you get like really cheap power supplies, they'll say it's rated at 500 watts, but then you look at that number and it's down into the 300s or something. So that could be bad. So far I don't really see anything that's really steering me away from this power supply as far as things to be concerned about. But what else really can be said here? It's pretty simple. I mean, it looks nice, all black cables, which I like to see. It even has it's put together here with some Velcro, so that could be potentially reusable for cable management in your system when you build. So yeah, we got the basic, 24 pin as we would expect. Let's take a look at all the cables. We got a PCIe splitter, so we can run 2 6 or 8 pin plugins for a video card. So that should basically take care of most any video card. CPU EPS connectors, we have a split again for a 4 6 and 8 pin. So we got 2 of those. And then what else do we got? Here's your SATA power, and it's split off into 3 connectors. So 1, 2, 3, that's pretty common with basically any power supply. And then lastly, we got a combination of Molex and SATA as well, which you typically will see again with most power supplies, especially ones that are kind of on this budget level. So honestly, yeah, this thing looks good. As far as the voltage readings on the side of it, I don't see anything that would necessarily be alarming to me. And yeah, honestly, it's better looking than most cheap power supplies I usually recommend, aside from the EVGA units. But obviously the Thermaltake units, there leaves a little bit of desirable factor as far as the looks department for some of those. But yeah, so I think, let's see here, we got the zip ties and screws, so I'm just gonna put that off to the side. I don't know, again, I'll check out what that free gift thing is. Maybe I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But here's the thing I'm kind of interested with here. So they provide this tester, and usually you'll see something like this if you're trying to run your power supply, like turn it on, and you're trying to do like water cooling bleeding, where you want to run your pumps but basically nothing else. So this is something that you jam into the 24 pin, and it shorts these 2 ends. That way the system will, or the power supply will turn on and actually provide power. So I guess what we'll do is we'll give this a test first here. So let's connect this here. We'll just find our notched ends and connect the power supply. So we got that all set and put together. Now I'm gonna go grab a longer power cable, and well, I guess we'll just see if this thing turns on, because that's gonna, I guess, be a good initial test without having to put any components to it. So kind of cool. All right, so got a power cable plugged into my wall outlet, and we've got the power supply with the jumper on the 24 pin. So let's plug this guy in, just kind of see what happens. And we want to flip that switch obviously to the line, which turns the unit on. Well, fan is spinning. I don't think this tells us much, honestly, other than the fact that, well, it's taking wall power, the fan is spinning, so at least it's showing life. Did I hear anything? I mean, sounds fine to me. Sounds like a power supply would, right? Shouldn't be real noisy. I don't hear any coil whine, anything like that, so that's good. So I think the only thing really that remains to be seen is how well this thing will do with a load put to it. So let's go ahead and turn it off here, and I'm gonna connect up just a test bench system, and we're gonna see exactly how well this power supply will do when we put a synthetic load. Like I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plug in one of my older video cards that I have, and then we're gonna run a benchmark and see how well that does. Alrighty guys, so we've had the system sitting on the test bench, as we'll call it, which is just a motherboard box with some parts plugged in, but had it running some stress tests on AIDA64, Cinebench looping, and Heaven benchmark, all basically just trying to make this system consume the most amount of power as possible. And although I'm not technically stressing the power supply because I'm not drawing it towards its rated limits, I at least wanted to see, putting a sustained power load on it to see if there's any kind of crazy ripples going on where I see massive power drops in weird places, things like that, or a not very consistent, or even just an over overpower draw, because bronze rated power supply for something that the components that I have plugged in here shouldn't be pulling anywhere near 500 watts, which we'll see here isn't. Let me show you what I got set up here, and you can kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with, and we'll kind of lead into some final thoughts here. Alrighty, so as I mentioned too, this is a bit of a mess. I don't have an official test bench, so this is actually just some parts I've managed to just pick up. This is a very old FX series 3-core 6-thread processor. It doesn't pull a ton of power. It's not super efficient either though, but it's basically just my throwaway when I'm kind of looking at testing things like power supplies that I'm not super trustworthy of, and I want to not kill anything expensive because I'm not a big fancy tech YouTuber yet, so I don't have all the fancy parts to just throw at things here. Now, also don't mind my super noisy RX 570 here. I actually picked this up locally from some guy. This fan here on the back is especially bad and making a bunch of noise, so know that the noise you hear is not the power supply. So speaking of the power supply, we got a kilowatt meter on it, and it's basically been, through all these benchmarks, been hovering around the 320-ish to 350 mark. Haven't actually seen it go over 350, I think. But so feeling around towards the back here, there isn't really any major amount of heat coming out, so the power supply seems to be running pretty cool, and it is running quiet, which I'll put my mic down there for you. So definitely no audible coil whine, which is usually an indicator if you've got some kind of weak components inside the power supply that they're getting stressed to a limit where that it shouldn't be. So I'm feeling pretty good about this power supply. And then I'll just quickly show you here what I've been running on it. So as I mentioned, I'm looping Cinebench. It's on running towards its 6-pass here. It's really struggling with all the benchmarks that are running, but as you can see, Heaven is also running in the background. So yeah, I mean, it's using a lot of power. I mean, not a ton, but it's using a fair amount that I would say if something was just to immediately pop and not do well, we would know it by now. There goes my really cruddy RX 570 again. But I think I'm leaning towards this power supply being somewhat trustworthy. So let's go back to the main cam here and just talk about a few things, and we'll conclude this video. All right, so I'm actually going to shut down the system here just because I'm really sick of hearing that rear fan on that RX 570. It's struggling, so let's just do that real quick. All right, now we're getting a little more quiet. Alrighty guys, so yeah, we got the system shut down here so we can talk in peace. That fan was too loud and noisy. But so a couple other things here I just got to thinking about with the power supply. I guess the main thing that's just kind of really hitting my mind here, and I don't want to recommend something to you guys that is sketchy, and that was kind of the main driving factor here, is this. I wouldn't say this power supply is considerably sketchy by any means. It's just I've never heard of the brand, and it very well may be a produced power supply with modern mainstream components in it that is just branded to a name of a company that maybe is trying to make the mark on the internet or something. But, you know, as mentioned, you know, the premium features here that kind of lead me towards more trusting this power supply over versus the known cheap stuff, because I've definitely dealt with cheap stuff that is way more sketchy feeling, looking, and sounding than this thing. So obviously the build quality of the case of the power supply is nice. It has some bulk and heaviness to it, which typically with a very cheap power supply that even of similar wattage ratings, you can really just kind of feel it. So there's definitely some bulk to this guy. It's not a very cheap feeling power supply by any means. The cables, you know, there's definitely some effort and some money put into these cables. They're all black, and they look good. They're sleeved. Like I said, the ketchup and mustard cables that you can get on these very cheap ones, you know, that is like the bare minimum spec, and this looks good and it's made to look premium. Hearing zero noise from this guy. The fan runs ultra quiet. I don't feel a lot of heat coming out of it either, which is a good thing even when it's under load. As we saw, we had it under load for over an hour and no problems felt or heard. So honestly, I want to say I want to recommend this product just because I don't really feel like I'm getting any red flags from it. And now where I wouldn't necessarily recommend using something like this is if you are buying higher end components. So what I plan on doing with this is putting it into a Dell Optiplex build that's not even going to pull even near 350 watts from the wall. It's going to be a very basic, safe implementation. So I don't think there's really going to be a big problem with putting in a power supply that may not be as the most trustworthy power supplies out there. The things that you want to look for too to in a cheap or non-cheap power supply is the ratings that are on the side here. So as we mentioned earlier, we have 500 total watts at its 80 plus bronze rated. So we're not just 80 plus, you know, we're a step above, which is nice to see. And it was also something that kind of turned me onto this power supply too. Secondly, we have 450 watts as a budget across our 12 volt rails. So again, we're not even going to be pulling anywhere near 450 watts for a type of build that we're going to implement this power supply. And so we're safe in that regard, that we're not going to over budget the 12 volt rail and then really run the risk of destroying components that are normally linked and powered via the 12 volt rail, being like your video card, CPU, and etc. Another thing I wanted to point out too is my go-to that I usually say is a EVGA bronze certified. Now this is just the box, but the thing I wanted to show here is the ratings are exactly the same power ratings on the 12 volt rails, the 5 volt rails. Everything is basically the same. Actually, this is a little less just because it's a 450 watt supply, but there isn't a big, huge difference in as far as the power ratings. So it kind of really leads me to believe that this unit is pretty trustworthy. So what can I say overall? I think what I could say overall here is I'm going to give it a shot. I don't see any potential reason to think that it could fail, and you know, really scares me about that. There's a lot of premium-esque things about this power supply that you don't get with the super cheap ones. Even those Thermaltake 430s that I've recommended before, those feel pretty significantly cheaper compared to this power supply. So guys, all in all, I think what I would say about this power supply is if you're wanting to go out and give it a shot and you want to save some money, this isn't where I would think you're cheaping out so much to a point where you're dangerously cheaping out. You're getting an 80 plus bronze rated supply, and it should be for a system that's a low power draw system. So something like what I'm doing with the Dell Optiplex. Where I would say I would alternatively make a suggestion is if you can find something like an EVGA BR, definitely go with that. You know, EVGA is a known name, a big known name in the power supply industry. They have quite a bit of reputation. So that's the main difference here is we don't see any particular reason without literally dissecting the power supply, which I don't suggest anybody do. It's very dangerous. You could literally kill yourself, and I'm not doing that too. I'm not an electrical engineer, so I can't make the recommendations based on the build quality of the capacitors or anything like that, because honestly, I don't know what I'm talking about with that. What I can say is I can give you my feel, and my feel was what you guys just saw. It seems pretty premium for its price. It is powering my components just fine without problems. No warning signals whatsoever, and I think it'll get the job done. So honestly guys, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this power supply a try. There isn't really anything that I've found through some of my tests here, although they've been kind of rudimentary and crude, and they aren't, you know, the absolute best way to test a power supply for what it's really capable of and doing the nitty-gritty tests. But you know, I don't have those types of tools or components on me to really give you that 100% seal of approval. So you make your decision, buy at your own risk. If you don't want to buy something that is a no-name product, and typically I don't, right? I usually stick to the big known brands that I know that are going to produce a good quality product, but it doesn't mean that you can't give something a try every once in a while, so long as you're, I guess, willing to take a little bit of a risk. Other than that guys, I'll leave a link to this power supply in the description down below. It'll be an affiliate marketing link for my Amazon storefront, so if you're looking to make a purchase, feel free to check that out. Helps give a little bit of kickback to the channel. And then honestly, do the YouTube thing, right? Let me know in the comments if you think I'm crazy buying this one-off power supply. Hopefully maybe they'll make a better name for themselves in the future, or was my methodology of testing just completely flawed and you think I'm crazy and stupid. But honestly, I just wanted to put this out there for you guys. I'm giving it a shot. There really wasn't any content out there that really showed off the power supply and like what it's capable of and really went through it in depth. So I figured, what the heck. So anyway, thanks for tuning into this one guys. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.